There are still billions of dollars available for businesses through the Employee Retention Credit Federal Tax Credit Program. Stenson Tamadon has helped companies with less than 500 employees retrieve over $3.4 billion in tax credits through employee retention credits. Call Stenson Tamadon today at 866-934-8461 today to start your application. That's 866-934-8461 to apply. Call now.
Hello, welcome to another AutoSuccess Executive Spotlight interview. I'm your host, Brian Ankney. Today my guest is Matt Kelly. He's the Director of Operations at Dealer Funnel. Welcome, Matt.
Thanks, Brian. Good to see you. How are you today?
I'm good. I'd like to start with a survey.
Yeah.
And everyone in the room who has never taken a nap in a car at a dealership, raise your hand.
Crickets.
So when I worked at a dealership, I used to like Camaros, like the long old Camaros, because I could drive to the back of the lot, put that seat back, and it was almost like laying in a bed. And they all have tinted windows, so you don't have to worry about getting caught.
Sure.
What was your favorite car to nap in?
I tended to find myself in a GMC Yukon or possibly like a Nissan Armada. I like those bigger ones that I was able to, hide essentially.
Yeah.
You had to really look in there and find me.
Yeah.
And most times I was just trying to hide from doing more work, more follow-up, just trying to take a break from the day.
Yep.
That's usually what it was.
I don't have a noble excuse. I was just, back then it was ding to dong 6 days a week.
Sure,
and
that too, right?
Yeah.
Worked a lot of bell to bells.
What else are you going to do? We weren't allowed to touch computers back in those days.
Sure. And we could, and I started around 2008 was when I started in the car dealership. So we definitely were emailing, calling, texting. Texting was starting to become big, but I just needed a break from the grind. They always wanted you to call. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you just needed to take a nap. You did work a lot of bell to bells, right? A lot of long 9 to 9 shifts.
Yep. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Matt. I mean, how did you get in the car business? What are you doing these days? Fill us in.
I got in the car business in 2008. I came straight out of college. I'm actually a CPA by trade. Came out of college. Unfortunately, 2008 was that time when the economy decided to take a turn. So some jobs that were promised to us when we graduated, unfortunately, about 37 days before I was going to start a job, it was cut essentially.
Oh wow!
And I was left for what to do. And at this time, this wasn't when Indeed existed. I was using Career Builder, if you remember Career Builder, and just like I don't know where should I go work. And man, was there a lot of ads for car dealerships, sales positions. So I just said, I need to make money. I want to, I need to do something. So I went and interviewed at a dealership, met the Kelly organization here in Allentown, Pennsylvania, and we interviewed, and it was great, honestly. From there, within 11 months, I was their top sales guy. Got promoted to running a used car store, and moved around different positions throughout the dealership over the next 13 years, and COVID came, and ironically, I got in the business during a major, I don't call it a crisis, but a moment in our history.
Yeah.
And then now the pandemic came, and I'm a history buff to begin with. And one thing I've studied in business is anytime a major event happens, it's a good time to make a business decision, whether it's for yourself, whether it's to start a business. It's just always a good time. And I was interviewing to potentially take over a couple stores for a dealer group in PA. And it was going to be a nice role, and I ended up talking to a gentleman named Troy Spring, and we, discussed some things, and that's where Dealer Funnel started to be birthed, because he was having conversations with our founder, Jeffrey Wise, and we just, from there, started to beta test this idea, and then June of 2021, we launched a full-fledged company, and over the last it's been about 18 months since June, and we have up to 16 employees, just over 140 dealerships on our platform.
Wow.
And that's what I'm doing today. And what we do to help customers is we have a lead gen management tool that's based around SMS, and it's to help technically reinvent follow-up in a way, and just be a little more efficient, be a little more intentful, and help them manage their leads, nurture their leads to a sale, to a higher engagement, so that they can get more appointments, and then obviously close them and sell more cars. So that's the premise of what we do, and how I arrived there. But as a person, I own a farm on the side. I'm a farm boy at heart, so no work in the car business, honestly, is too much work for me. No, it's not too hard. I do the hard stuff after work.
boy.
typically when I'm on a farm. But that's me in a nutshell. And I'm a husband first and foremost. That's my first job, and then my second job is a dad, and then helping dealers is after that. So that's about me.
So Matt, what do you have here?
So I brought you a shirt. It's a phrase that I kind of live by. I have always said, and especially being at Dealer Funnel, it's what the stigma of what I would like to kind of change in the auto industry. But I believe, follow-up shouldn't suck. And unfortunately, I think it does in the industry. I think the way we go about it in the car business isn't always efficient, isn't always intentful, and ultimately, it can be deflating. It can be a little bit negative to our people that work for us and work with us, and sometimes even on the customer's end, it's not delivered properly. It's not received well, and that's the whole goal. And I really just think that it needs to change.
So follow-up shouldn't suck. And my time working at a dealership and then working with hundreds of them, as a consultant, that's not really the case that I saw. What can we do to take the suck out of follow-up?
I think that we can get the people who are the best at it in the store that have earned those stripes, i.e. managers. I think that starts with them first. It's setting a different precedence every day inside of the dealership. One thing we did at our store, and I know stores countrywide do this, but what type of process they go about it is the most important piece, and that's the one-on-one with your salespeople. Not every manager out there is managing more than 5, 6, 10 salespeople, right? And at that point, not every salesperson's working actively. And I mean active. When I say active, somebody who can close in the next 30 days, because we do work on that month-to-month basis, right? I know we're always planning for our future, but dealers in general are so hyper-focused on that month that they're in, right?
Yeah.
So who are your active clients that we could, bring to fruition in that moment, in that month? So who is that? And let's have those conversations with our managers and have the managers help plan out the follow-up. So that way the follow-up's actually being, and I continuously will use a word throughout our conversation today, and that's intentful, because I don't think we go about it the way we want to, because we use CRMs that they're great, they're management tools, but they're not sales tools. I think they're great for managers managing the dealership itself, but inside of those tools, they make us follow tasks, right? And I think that those tasks, unfortunately, there's some people who have some dialed in task processes at dealerships. There's always there's the 80% that aren't the rule, and then there's 20% that are the rule, right? So I'm going with the more broad spectrum of dealers, but the tasks that they have worked in there were recommended by the CRM company. They were, hey, this dealership is doing it, you should do it. So they're saying, hey, Brian came in as a lead 5 days ago, but we should probably just call him today because the task said so, when that may not be where the BDR, the salesperson, left off with Brian, and maybe they didn't put proper notes in. And I think that we sometimes forget who's doing the follow-up and not be coached through it. On every other process in the dealership, we don't do that.
Well, I think you're exactly right. I'd say that most salespeople in dealerships and probably around the world and sell everything, their day is driven by tasks. What's if we're not going to drive their day with tasks, what should we be using to drive their day? So
that's kind of like why Dealer Funnel exists. We are an SMS-based tool where when a lead is ingested into our system, we're ingesting that lead, and as soon as we grab it, we're actually going to push it to the CRM automatically, because we never want to say you shouldn't house that information there. You shouldn't do certain things inside your CRM. But the most important way to get in touch with a client today, and I don't think you would disagree, because we've had conversation this way, is text. Is SMS, right? Because it's convenient. It's at their time. It's when they have time, right? Because people are busy. I'm not saying that life is busier now than it was in the 80s, but it certainly feels that way. People just have more to do, so they're just more consumed with it. More people are working that didn't work in the household, so there's just more going on. So what Dealer Funnel allows you to do is we're able to build out systematic cadences through texting, where we can even send out what's called blasting. We can blast 5 people a message or 100,000 people a message at one time. And the way you would want to then use that is whoever's replying. Don't get me wrong. There's going to be people who say, hey, I already bought. I'm not interested. I'm a month out. I'm 2 months out. I'm waiting on this. I'm waiting on that. But there's a lot more that also say they are interested. They are engaged. Those are who you should be calling. They're the people who want to talk to you. Now you're going to have a more positive conversation. If I'm working for you, Brian, and you sent out a text blast and 20 people replied that are interested, and then I call that first person and now they were engaged, and now they want to come in potentially on Saturday, look at some vehicles, do you think I'm more excited to go to the next person? Versus if they tell me no, I'm not interested because I aimlessly called them through tasks. It's just reversing the script and getting in front of people and talking to the people who want to talk to you. That's what our system allows you to do. We're not focused on the task-based system. We're focused on getting messages out on a day-to-day basis with specific cadences, and then alternatively using other features in our systems to get you in front of them through texting. And when they text, we recommend you call. And if they don't want to take that call, instead of leaving a voicemail, you text them that you just called from that number, because they can call it, they can text it. Because honestly, I don't know about you, but I don't even listen to my voicemails anymore. Quite frankly, I read all of them because they transcribe them now for me on my phone. So I don't, at that, even then, if I'm quickly looking at it, I can just look at my voicemail and go. So we even recommend that sometimes it's not even beneficial to leave a voicemail. Just send a text. It's gonna do the same, and quite frankly, they're more likely to see it faster and read it faster because 97% of all texts are opened.
Yep. Well, and if they've got a text from you, the next time you text, there's already that history in there.
Amen.
So they know who it is. They're not wondering who is this the next time.
Exactly.
So I want to go back to at the very beginning. I want to make sure I've got that right. So basically, what you're doing is you're reaching out and you're touching with text messages, maybe 50, maybe 500, maybe 5,000 people, and then you're only going to call the ones that raise their hand and say, "Hey, I'm over here. I'm ready to buy a car."
That's what we're going to recommend 100%, because quite frankly, we know that you could go and you say, Matt, go make 100 phone calls today. The connectivity rate's going to be anywhere from 15 to 30%. Some people may connect a little bit higher because they do a couple simple or more dialed in things where they're using multiple phone numbers to make those phone calls, and they may trick a customer or two. I understand all that. But at the end of the day, even when I connect with those folks, there's no guarantee they even want to speak to me. I may talk to 15 people that none of them want to actually talk to me. That's a hard day. That was a long day.
Yeah.
It takes some time to make those phone calls. And unfortunately, we can get down on ourselves. And it's nothing against the personnel that we're putting in those positions, but a lot of them aren't sales position folks, right? They're not motivated by the spiff, so to speak. They're not motivated by the bonus. They're motivated by the work. And then they're going to go home and they're going to tend to their family. They're going to have dinner. They may go to a soccer practice, a football practice, something of that nature, and spend time with their family. That's typically who we're hiring inside of our business development centers, and we need to be conscious of that. So when they then have a really, in my opinion, I look at that as a negative day because you're not having healthy, positive conversations. They don't really want to go do it the next day. And then when that compounds, just like compound interest, if you compound negative feelings daily, eventually you don't do the job well enough to even do it, right? Yeah. You're not giving your best effort even on that phone call.
You're expecting the follow-up to suck.
Amen. Amen, my friends. And that's why when you work the way our system works, and they're going through these funnels and people reply, and or if it's through the text blasting, the different ways that we're going at them through the SMS cadences, when they engage and they say, well, I am looking, and I mean, there's so many times where we see they're saying, I am looking, and we haven't spoken to that lead for 30 days, and then they already pick out a stock number. Now when you go to call that person, because they're instantly on the phone, now you're talking about a car they want, a car that's in stock. I'm pretty sure I can get Brian to make 5 more phone calls to the same people that are in that same queue waiting, that just texted us back, right? Now you want to engage with people, and now you're making it less sucky, right?
Sucky, yeah. And
you're making it a more positive experience for the people doing it. Because I've been there. I mean, I sold A to Z internet leads. It can be a grind, but all at the same time, BDCs are either underappreciated or they're appreciated. And if they're underappreciated, they shouldn't be, because they are the heartbeat of the store. But we need to put that same attention that we do on our recon process for used cars, that we do for our process just for when we meet and greet somebody. It is no different. We should have that same intensity with our follow-up, but we have to make sure that our managers are putting intent with their BDRs and or our salespeople, however their process is in their store. They should be the driving ship. They need to be the captain of that follow-up and know that that is how they can save their dealership money, by capitalizing on those people, but then obviously make the dealership more money because they're squeezing that towel appropriately. And I think that's really important.
You know, you mentioned intentful follow-up. Mm-hmm. Can you explain what is intentful follow-up?
Sure. For instance, tasks being generated in a system, that's not intentful, right? If you have a day 1 through 14 process and you say that this lead deserves 10 calls, 10 emails, 10 texts, no offense, I don't think that's intentful. That's just somebody told you should make some tasks and send all that, make those calls, send that information. Not every email is personalized. Not saying you shouldn't do those things, but there's no intent there. Now when I go to read a lead and I diagnose the lead and I see the certain comments and they ask about availability or ask for pictures, best price, etc., I want to intentfully go after that comment. And from there, I want to make sure that the follow-up is around that lead exactly the way it should be. But if they don't respond in the first day, we should have cadences doing some of the work for us, because we look at leads as there's no such thing as a bad lead to us unless it's a bad phone number, bad email. I get that, and we can't connect.
Yeah.
But really, we're not going to stop following with bad credit customers, people who buy elsewhere. We're not going to stop following with them because they may not buy today, but they could buy 6 months from now. We are able to nurture leads that were 3, 4, 5, 9 months old because we're letting the system reach out constantly through conversational messages. This isn't like sales pitch messages. It's very conversational. We send them, at 1:14 in the afternoon, at 2:39 p.m. in the afternoon. They're very specific times, not 2:30, not 3 o'clock. They're very broad times because we want the customer to feel like, we just thought of you and reached out. And by going after the customers that then reply and putting all of our energy after those folks, I look at it this way. Would you rather you take 100 phone ups? Would you rather one of your team members take 100 phone ups or just cold call 100 of your leads? Which one would you prefer?
Oh, the phone ups.
Same concept with the text blasting and the way that our system works. If the people are replying and they end up in our awaiting response, I'd rather my team talk to those folks than aimlessly go after all these tasks that they may have never connected with any of those leads. They don't know what the next step is. So I'd rather talk to people who are replying to our cadences and have our customers or our agents and or salespeople call them specifically, because now they can work them and know what their next step is and establish that. Because from there, we should then not just put people in a status to just follow up with them randomly 3 months from now, 9 months from now. We should have a plan of attack. So that's kind of how our system works. I mean, we can develop a funnel for any situation that you literally can think of in the automotive landscape. There's not a funnel that we probably don't have in our system because we're car guys. We thought through every step, every objection, every moment. I mean, we use it on the sold side. We make sure birthday texts are going out, anniversary texts, and it's guaranteeing that is happening. And again, that's intent, right? That's being intentful.
So intentful follow-up is really about allowing technology to automate the mundane tasks and then directing all of your talent and attention to providing follow-up that's meaningful to the customer that makes them more likely to transact.
We're going to go after the people who engage, right? Because the whole goal of follow-up is to get engagement.
Yeah.
Right? You want to get on the phone because you want to engage with them. You want to reply to an email because you want to engage with them. You want to reply to a text because you want them to engage. So talk to the ones that are engaging. Once we have that engagement taking place, so much more is possible then, right? If we don't have engagement, we can't set an appointment. So if we have engagement, we can set an appointment, and typically appointments then lead to what? Sales. Yeah. So that's the whole goal. That's why I mean, let's be more intentful with our follow-up. Let's not just blindly call 100 leads just because they're sitting in a bucket. I'd rather you send 100 texts very quickly, and then whoever responds, I want you to call them. Yeah. Because that's using our agents' time more wisely. It's not, I mean, if whoever out there who's never made 100 phone calls, go do it. I mean, go do what your BDRs are doing and see how great that experience is. Yes, you may do better than them because you have maybe some more experience. You've handled every objection that's been thrown at you since you've been in the car industry. But do you love that job? So I always look at it as I'm just trying to flip that script and make sure that we're helping those folks do their job the best they can, and not something that's overly tedious that just lands them in the same spot every time, and that's a lot of no's, a lot of hang-ups, I don't have time to talk to you on the phone right now. I'd rather stay away from those conversations. I'd rather just go after folks through SMS, text them, volley it to a phone call, and then go from there.
Yeah, I mean, you're eliminating the brain damage for your people and for your customers. It's a lot easier to ignore a text than it is to tell another human being, I don't have time for you now.
That's exactly it. Yeah, you nailed that on the head, Brian.
Now, we've kind of talked about a lot of different tactics: phone calls, emails, text messaging. They all have their place. And Dealer Funnel sounds like you help dealers know where that place is. Can you tell me, when is the right time for a phone call? When is the right time for an email? When is the right time for a text? And even more importantly, when is the wrong time?
Sure. I mean, I'll look at you right square in the face and say, if a lead came in right now and we were open, you should probably call it right away. But honestly, it should get a text first. I truly believe that a text should happen before first and foremost of anything. And sometimes it's just a simple welcoming text, letting them know we received your information. You know, if it's a Car Gurus lead, cars.com website, hey, I'm the website specialist here. Glad to get your information, Brian. Did you receive this message? Reply to stop that at any time. I want to get that out right away. So I don't think there's a good time or a bad time when it's a fresh lead.
Yep.
But as it ages, from there is when I think it is when it all matters. And I don't think there's a secret sauce to emailing either, right? There's email only leads. I mean, you obviously only really have one choice, right? You got to email them. So there's probably not a good day or a bad day, but it's just when you have an email only lead, if you are going to email, you got to, I believe truly in personalized emails. I believe in making sure that one of the last things you do inside of an email is asking a question. So I think it's a matter of the type of lead. You know, I think used car leads, for instance, they're a little quicker to respond. They're a little quicker to buy. So you gotta get in front of them as fast as possible. That's where I think texting is huge because honestly, I mean, I look at it. We know what the percentages are in our systems, but people are opting out at less than a 2% rate.
Really?
And I'm talking about 500,000 leads a month that I see at less than 2%. So know that we have an average lead in 100 days receiving between 37 to 65 messages in 100 days out of our system.
Wow.
And they're opting out less than 2% of the time. So I believe that texting, there's never a bad time.
Yeah.
Based on that data, there's just not a very bad time. Where I believe phone calls starts to hurt us is the spam technology that exists. Unfortunately, a lot of businesses fall into that category. So if you're going to get in touch with them, that's where I think texting can help you. You can let somebody know who it is. You can tell them a name in the text. You can tell them the dealership name. And now if you kind of think of like on an iPhone, for instance, it'll say maybe Brian, if I didn't have your phone number in my phone, right? But now when you call, I'm less likely to follow up on the spam. So now I get that text out, now I call. So I also think it's just a systematic approach. If you're going to do the phone call, it's important to do the text to try to stay away from those spam numbers so that way someone actually wants you to receive that call. But then again, if you call a lot over time, right, and you're not texting as much, you're not announcing who you are, you're going to fall on the spam list anyway with them. Most carriers just have very strict rules.
Yeah.
So that's why I think long-term, phone calls can really just die out after about a 5 to 7 day period. That's why I think if you just have a very strong text cadence, where, I mean, and I'm talking every day for the first 10 days, and then every 2 days for the next 30, and then every 3 days out to 100. And then from there, you know, out to however long. I mean, we have funnels built for 10 years. So I just think that texting, there's not a bad time. I just think phone calls, if you're going to make them, you got to do it early and often, because over time you're just going to fall suspect to that spam stuff. And then email, unfortunately, I mean, I think we could all agree in the early 2000s, email was great, but that flip switched around 2015 where texting became a very prominent player. Definitely seen some email life since COVID. I'm the first to say, like, I see things. I'm never going to shun it away. But I think that, again, that's intentful, right? You want to send maybe CRM updates with specials, right? Go after your database. You know, if it's just old leads, fresh leads, again, it just has to be more. It has to be early and often, but it has to have a specific message. It has to be answering their questions. You know, and it's got to feel like a conversation, just like texting would. I feel like emailing is very similar because most people are reading them on their mobile device. So you got to keep them short and simple. So I don't think there's ever a right, wrong time to follow up because every store is different. Everyone sometimes wants to put more pressure on. I have stores that put less pressure on. That's why I said we have that wide gap of average, because there's different personalities at every store across the country. But I think when you do it, it just goes to being intentful again. It just I reiterate that a lot because I want to be an efficient person with our follow-up, but I want to make sure that when we're going about it, it makes sense for the customer. You know, and if somebody hits the button to ignore my call, I'm going to follow up with a text. And if they reply through a text, I'm going to keep it there. They've already ignored one of my calls. They've already pushed me to voicemail, but they're replying to my text. So I'm not going to call that person. So that would be a wrong time to call that person. If they're already ignoring my call, why would I go down that path? If I was texting somebody and they did ask me to email them, I'm not going to text them the information that they just asked me to email them, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's also just listening. You know, I always said the salesperson who listens the least or listens the most but speaks the least will always sell the most cars. Same concept with follow-up. You can get through to people if you listen to what they want. Everyone says they'll teach you they'll tell you exactly how to sell them a car. Well, they'll tell you exactly how to follow up with them too once you connect. So to connect at people with a high rate, text them as much as possible.
Okay.
And then call them when they connect. And then email them. Email when necessary, right? Email them when they want information. Email them periodically, but I don't think email every day really makes sense anymore just because of the open rates and the click-through rates these days are just a lot lower.
It's hard to talk tech in the car space without touching digital retailing. Tell me how you feel about digital retailing and, share with our audience some insight.
I'm excited for digital retailing. It's a great place for our industry to go, but I really, really believe that we're terrible at following up. I think earlier in the day, you and I joked before, I got in the car business right before CRMs existed. I sold more cars using a Rolodex because I was able to touch people. I mean, I went through that thing every day and just called who was necessary, and I was good at that. But digital retailing is completely all about follow-up. So it goes to like revamping those processes. Is every dealership going to eliminate tasks in their CRM? Absolutely not. Am I going across the country trying to sell dealer funnel to people, telling them to eliminate all of their tasks in their CRM? No, but I'm definitely challenging their thinking, because at the same token, when you have a digital retail lead come in, you certainly don't want to put them in a day 1 through 14 process that tells them that tells your BDR to call them 10 times in 10 days. Email them 10 times in 10 days. There's a totally different process there. And I think that's what we need to do, right? It's just no different than if it's a VDP request from your website, you should handle that request differently. And same thing with the cars.coms, the car gurus, the auto traders. Those are VDP, vehicle-specific leads. Handle that lead specific to the lead source. If it's a trade lead, you would want to have a different process for that too, right? So I think that the biggest thing with digital retailing is being prepared for it. Not talking about just what the best tool is. The tool is just a piece. It's the people. Everyone always talks about we're in the people business. We're in the people business. You're right. We're always so focused on that customer experience. You're right. I'm 100% with that. But I believe that we have to make sure our own people are being taken care of and they understand the process and they understand that, hey, if you were going to buy a car like this, how would you want it to go? What would that process look like? And are we doing it efficiently and effectively? I used to say at the dealership, if I do something 100% of the time, it gets done 100% of the time. So I think if we're going to do digital retailing effectively, we have to make sure that we're building a process around it. And it goes to your previous question about when's the best time to call, when's the best time to send a text, when's the best time to send an email. That's when we really got to start having those conversations. Because I think you would agree, Brian, you've consulted plenty of dealerships and talked to a lot currently. If we ask them right now, what's your recon process when a used car comes in? Not just the used car directors knows that process.
Yeah.
So do their salespeople,
yeah,
right?
Everybody knows it.
But no offense, does the salespeople really need to know the recon process? They just need to know that it's out front ready to go. And if it's not out front ready to go, they should just be able to go to the used car manager or someone alike and say, where's the car, what stage is it in, and then deliver that. They should be the experts at the follow-up, but it goes back to managers. Managers have to make it important and make it front of mind and top of mind. And have those conversations. So I'm excited for digital retailing. I think it's going to be great, but I honestly, if I was being really frank, I think our industry needs to revamp how we follow up if we want to make sure we're good at doing that. Because I don't know about you. I've tested I've secret shopped Carvanas, the CarMaxes. I know their processes. I know their follow-up processes. They're not like us. They do it differently. They have a lot of people who didn't work in the car business that work for them. So they just look at it as a way they need to buy a car, they want to sell us a car, et cetera, and they make it very seamless and easy. I think our follow-up needs to be more seamless and easy too, if we're going to make digital retailing work.
Let's talk about another buzzword, vehicle buying centers.
Yeah.
Every dealer in America wants more cars than they have.
Sure.
And so they're trying everything they can to find cars, source vehicles.
Yeah.
Can text messaging help make that happen?
Oh my God! Not only can it help make it happen, I think it can deliver the results that dealers are looking for. And I've seen it. It doesn't matter if you're using a tool like VinQ or KBB ICO, Trade Pending. They're all positive, specifically to the store if you believe in it, right? Every tool can work if your team buys into it, and that's how I feel about any type of trade tool. But then it boils down to the process. Now, a lot of times though, you'll see out there someone will say, I want to sell us your car. Sell us your car. But as soon as they come into the dealership, they're asking, well, Brian, now that you sold us your car, what are you going to do? You want to trade up? You want to trade out? You want to do this? Well, no, I just came to you to sell it, right? It has to be its own department. It has to be its own process, and it has to deliver what the customer expected. Because when the customer comes in from for a vehicle buying center, more times than not, they're there to sell. I mean, there's a lot of people that are there to sell. And the reason I think they sometimes avoid the dealer is because their fear is that you said I could come in and sell you this car and you'll give me a check on hand, but all you care about is when I get there is what car are you going to use to replace it.
Well, remember when you were being trained, and I remember this, I couldn't even believe this was a thing. You'd get the newspaper and you'd go for all the cars for sale, and they said, call we want to buy their car, so when they come in, we can sell them a car.
Yeah.
But
it's forever, right?
Yeah.
It's been that way forever.
It's been that way forever. Like, that's got to be a hard mindset to change.
It is, but do you have a parts department? Do you have a service department? Do you have a detail department? Do you have a body shop? They all have a process. A vehicle buying center has to be its own department. It has to have its own process. Can texting help it? Because that was your original question. Yes, but first we've got to make sure that you're setting it up that it's its own process, because from there, that's another whole thing. That's why we go back to the digital retailing. It's its own process for follow-up. Vehicle buying center, completely different process for then follow-up, right? And the biggest thing that happens when you have those ads out there about selling the vehicle is the customers reached out to you to sell their car, right? So have that process built around that methodology, right? Like, make sure they understand that, hey, if they're coming in to sell something, that they literally came in to sell it, and make sure you have the check ready when you provide them the number, and build your sales process around that, or your vehicle buying center process, I should say, because it's not a sales process, and make sure that your follow-up's built around that. If you're reaching out to people that are on Craigslist or on Facebook Marketplace or Cars.com, Car Gurus, the private sellers, if you are going after those folks, and you want to use texting, let's make sure that the texting cadence, though, has verbiage that is all about selling a vehicle. It's all about how long it's going to take. It's all about describing that process, and making sure that when you describe it in those texts and then they reply and then you do get them to commit to coming in, that it literally is exactly what you said it was going to be when they show up at the store. So do I think texting can help with it? Absolutely. But I think the biggest thing is delivering upon what you say you're going to send out, what you say in those texts, that you deliver upon it when they show up. Because if you don't do that, then you're going to have that reputation of, oh, they're going to tell you you'll sell you a car, and then they're just going to try to, Brian's just going to go and tell you, what do you want to buy? What do you want to buy? How are you going to replace it? That's all that's going to happen. And then you get the different reputation. So I think there's a few variables that go into it, but certainly I mean, you could ask me, would texting help service sell more business? And I'm going to say yes, because 97% of all texts are opened, and then 90% of them are actually responded to in 15 minutes. Wow. So yes. Can you do that on a phone call? No. It doesn't happen, because even when someone's at work, they text, right? I mean, heck, kids take phones to school. I never would even thought that would be, allowed, to be frank with you. Yeah. But it is. It's so common. It's like it became in a short time, it became pretty relevant. I mean, I remember the days when I went to college my first year, and my dad called me and told me I had a $2,000 text bill. That's how much I was texting when text messages cost, 10 cents a text. It was a bad day. I had a bad day at school that day. Right? Texting has taken over our culture. It's the preferred way of communicating. Like people, and I think that's good and bad too, right? Outside of business, we should talk on the phone a little bit more with our friends and family. We should have those personal conversations and connections. But when we're selling something to somebody and we're servicing somebody, we should follow up with them the way they want. And the stats don't lie. I mean, people just like to be texted, and so do we, right? Like, so do the people at the dealership. So if we like it, why wouldn't our clients like it?
Well, Matt, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience before we say goodbye?
I just appreciate the time. Appreciate you giving us the opportunity to speak and tell people out there a little bit about Dealer Funnel, what we care about, what's personal to us, and what we're trying to accomplish. We're not here to disrupt in anyone's store. We're simply trying to get in the boat with you, grab a paddle, find out what you do, paddle with you, help you make you a little more efficient, and make you a little bit more money and save you some money too. Yeah. I think that's the real goal of what we're trying to accomplish at Dealer Funnel, and we look forward to speaking to people more about it. And I just love the car business. At the end of the day, I went to school to be an accountant, and I didn't think I'd be in the car business 15 years later, but I don't think I'll ever get out of it because it's a heck of an industry. It gives a lot of us a great opportunity, and we serve a lot of cool people. And I think that's what's important. And I just want to continue to make it better and make the experience better and be part of that movement.
That's great. You know, on this show, I get to talk to a lot of my old friends, and today I think I made a new friend. Thank you for coming.
I look forward to fishing.
Yeah, we're going to go fishing together.
We will.
And thank you for watching this AutoSuccess Executive Spotlight. Hope to see you again soon.